namely that antidepressants often do not do what they promise and are in fact causing harm to many.
Dr. Steve Hotze is suing over Obamacare's employer mandate.
It's time for a Wellness Revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctor.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Welcome to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution podcast. And just as a reminder, you can always go to hotzepodcast.com. That's Hotze podcast.com to subscribe, to all of our podcast broadcasts. We have got a great show for you today. Dr. Hotze, millions and millions of people have been misdiagnosed with this horrible condition. Share with us what that is and what people can do about it. It is a silent condition that affects millions of Americans.
Literally tens of millions, maybe as many as 100 million Americans are affected by a very simple, solvable problem called hypothyroidism. It's a low thyroid condition. And the thyroid gland, which is located in the neck and shaped like a butterfly, produces thyroid hormones. The thyroid hormones are circulated in the blood. Doctors do blood tests. You got thyroid in your blood. The real question is do you have enough thyroid within the cells of your body? Because the thyroid hormones are what enable your cells' power plants, your generating plants called the mitochondria, to produce energy. And when you produce good and optimal amounts of energy, your body's going to be healthy. You're going to be full of energy. You're going to think sharp. You're going to be on your game. You're going to be enthusiastic. You're not going to have problems with high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol. You're going to have get up and go, and you're not going to feel like all the other people around you whose get up and go has got up and gone. So thyroid is so critical to the health of an individual because it enables the cells to produce and use energy. Now, it seems like this should be, if this is a very common problem, why does it go so commonly undiagnosed or misdiagnosed? Well, let me give you the symptoms first to show you how simple it is to make a clinical diagnosis. By clinical, I mean based upon the patient's symptoms and their signs, and they're fairly straightforward. Low energy levels, fatigue, tiredness. You sleep, you get up, you don't feel rested, you slug out all week long just so you can get in bed and sleep in Saturday morning, sleep in Sunday morning, and go to Bedside Baptist instead of First Baptist and listen to Pastor Sheets instead of listening to Second Baptist Dr. Ed Young. This is what happens. When you have low thyroid, you got fatigue. Commonly, there's difficulty with weight. Can't seem to lose weight. You may not be eating right, and that doesn't help things. But even if you do eat right, I've heard so many people say, I do my best. I'm trying to eat and exercise, but I can't lose weight. I just gain weight. When did it happen? What happened after my first baby? Or a guy tell me it happened when I hit 40. I just couldn't get my weight down. I'm gaining weight. And another problem is cold body temperature. Think about it. If the thyroid hormone enables your cells to produce and use energy, and the excess energy is what gives your body a temperature, if you don't get enough thyroid into your power plants to produce enough energy, you're not going to have the excess energy to have a good body temperature, which should be what?
98.6.
And we see people coming in all the time, 1.5 to 2 degrees, even 2.5 degrees low, down in the 96s. And women tend to run lower than men because they tend to get have the problems with hypothyroidism more commonly than men because they have hormonal imbalances in their female hormones. They have to balance out their estrogen and progesterone on a monthly basis. And when the estrogen becomes dominant, it adversely affects their thyroid hormones. So they tend to have, when they come in, they tend to have been afflicted by this condition of low thyroid within the cells much longer. This is called type 2 hypothyroidism. Type 1 hypothyroid, that's type 2 hypothyroidism is when you don't assimilate enough thyroid hormone, active thyroid hormone into your cells, and because of that, you can't don't have enough active thyroid hormone that enables the cells to produce and use enough energy for you to function at an optimal level.
Well, Dr. Hotze, this is such a great point because so many people will say, I've been to my regular doctor. They say my levels are fine, my thyroid levels. Well, they might be, but are they getting assimilated into your cells? That's the real question. So you have to look at the symptoms.
Right. That's why we have to listen to an individual's symptoms. Now, let me go back and finish my thought on this. The type 2 hypothyroidism is when you don't assimilate enough and aren't able to convert enough inactive thyroid hormone, which is T4, to the active thyroid hormone T3. That's one of the problems. It's called type 2 hypothyroidism. It's cellular resistance to the thyroid or an inability of the cells to properly convert the inactive or the very minimally active thyroid hormone T4, which has 4 iodine atoms, to T3, which is the active thyroid hormone that has 3 iodine atoms. Now, type 1 hypothyroidism is when your thyroid gland isn't producing enough thyroid hormone. And this is commonly caused by a disorder called autoimmune thyroiditis, where you make antibodies. Your immune system is disrupted. And it can be a genetically inherited problem. It can be caused by leaky gut syndrome. It can be cross-reactivity between food, toxins in your system that cross-react when you make antibodies to foreign substances in your system. Oftentimes they'll cross-react with another organ, giving you an autoimmune disorder. When they cross-react with the thyroid gland in the thyroid cells, it's called autoimmune thyroiditis. It's an inflammation of the thyroid. Those antibodies cause the thyroid to become scarred, and it scarred down and becomes very fibrotic and scarred, and it doesn't produce adequate amounts of thyroid hormone. This is type 1 hypothyroidism. You can also have hypothyroidism if the pituitary gland in your brain doesn't produce enough thyroid-stimulating hormone, and there are some other reasons for that, but we won't address that in this segment because that can be I don't want to get off on that tangent. Here's the key thing. Do you get enough thyroid hormone in your cells? If you don't, your energy production is going to be low, and you're going to have the symptoms. You're going to have the fatigue we talked about, the difficulty with weight, a low body temperature. Commonly, people will tell me, my hands and feet are cold. They'll say, my husband makes me wear socks to bed because my feet are so cold all the time. I'm cold in the summer when other people are warm. That's to a significant degree when people have low body temperature. They never feel warm. Also, difficulty with focusing and thinking. Mental clarity goes into the tank. So people commonly, and women use this term very commonly, I've got brain fog. I don't hear men use that word. They just say, my thinking isn't as good. I'm not as sharp as I used to be. But women, for some reason, they use the terminology.
You're right.
And it really is very descriptive. You think about a fog. When you go outside in a fog, how it's hard to see in a distance. They feel like their brain's foggy. They've got a fog in their brain. They have difficulty with sleep. They don't have restful sleep. They may have insomnia with hypothyroidism. They toss and turn all night, never feel rested. They always feel tired. They can develop joint and muscle aches and pains to the point some doctors slap a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which means inflammation of the fibrous and muscle tissue in your body. That's called fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is a Latin term for joint and muscle aches and pains. So you tell the doctor you got joint and muscle aches and pains, he tells you, well, after thousands of dollars in tests and x-rays, you have fibromyalgia. The question should always be, why do I have that symptom? What causes me? Don't feel overwhelmed when a doctor says you have fibromyalgia, or don't go feel relieved at least I know what I have. All he's done is taken a Latin term and he's turned it to describe what your English terms for your symptoms are. That doesn't make any sense. He's just using a Latin term to tell you what your symptoms are. Symptoms are not a diagnosis. And this is one problem doctors commonly have. They take your symptoms and they make your symptom of diagnosis. You have chronic fatigue syndrome. You have obesity. You have insomnia. You have fibromyalgia. You may have irritable bowel syndrome or constipation. Very commonly, don't have normal bowel functions when you have hypothyroidism. You can have recurrent and chronic infections. Why? Because your immune system doesn't have enough energy to fight off the bacteria and viruses that you're exposed to. So very commonly we see people who have hypothyroidism. It's not uncommon if they have allergy symptoms as well. It's not uncommon at all to see them having recurrent infections, sinus, bronchial infections. They're sick all the time. They never feel well. And they're on antibiotics, which just create a whole host of other problems with yeast in the system. They can have loss of romantic moods and inclinations. They can have hair loss. They can have an enlarged tongue. You can check your tongue out, let it hang out of your mouth. It has scalloping on the border. You have an enlarged tongue. Loss of the lateral third of your eyebrows, dry skin, brittle fingernails, puffy, pale, pasty, slow speech. Just can't seem to answer things quickly. You're kind of dull.
Slower brain speed.
Yeah, the brain's slowed down. Well, of course it's slowed down. You're not producing enough energy. Now, these are common symptoms that attend a low thyroid condition or hypothyroidism because you don't have enough active thyroid hormone within your cells to produce energy within the power plants of your cells, your mitochondria. So you have low energy production. And that low energy production means the biochemical processes within the cells don't have the energy needed to make them function optimally. And if the cells don't function optimally, your organs don't function. So you gain weight, you get diabetes, you get high blood pressure, you get coronary artery disease. Now you get kidney problems, you get strokes, you get degenerative arthritis, you get a host of problems that are all started by lack of energy production because you don't get enough thyroid hormone in your cells. Now, this goes misdiagnosed by most doctors because let me ask you a question. How long does your physician spend time with you when you go into the office? If you're like the average patient in America, it's approximately 6 minutes from start to finish. He doesn't have time for you to list these symptoms. He simply wants to hear one symptom. They may or may not do a blood test. It may not be covered. Listen, a key blood test that very rarely is ordered by conventional doctors because the insurance companies won't pay for it is to check to see if you have antibodies to your thyroid gland to see if you have autoimmune thyroiditis. Here at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center, we've tested thyroid antibodies on every guest that's come in since 1992. And it runs about 28% of the females have antibodies to their thyroid gland and about 18% of the males. Now, that tells you they got a thyroid problem. And if the doctor, and you may see an endocrinologist, they may check for that, but your routine family doc doesn't check for that, or internist is not going to check for that because it's not on the panel of what the insurance companies will pay for. And as long as your TSH, which is your thyroid stimulating hormone, falls within a very wide range of normal, the doctor will say, well, your thyroid's normal. Well, 95% fall within the normal range. The blood normal range given by the lab is as wide as the Grand Canyon, as tall as the Empire State Building. You can't hardly fall out of that range. So if you were up at the top range when you were young, full of energy, and your thyroid hormone has declined, so now it's the bottom end of the range, it's declined 50%, you think you're going to have as much energy as you did. If your energy production is dependent upon thyroid, if you got half as much thyroid in your body as you used to have, it's going to run about half speed. Your energy level is going to go from a 10 to a 5 or from an 8 to a 4. And you're going to have low energy and go, well, my doctor said it. Everybody, all his patients feel this way when they get older, when they get 35 or 40. Come on. I'm 67 right now and just got through, I'm on playing numerous consecutive days in a golf tournament and was up to all hours of the night and got up early in the morning, and I'm going and blowing all the time.
You've always had a lot of energy.
But that's the reason is because when Dr. Dick Mabry, told me about thyroid back in 92, I checked, and indeed my symptoms were consistent with low thyroid. I didn't have any antibodies, but I began to take thyroid, and I've been on thyroid hormone and testosterone for all these years, and it's made a huge difference. So at 67, I feel as good as I did when I'm 18, and frankly, I shoot lower scores. My handicap's about a 7 right now, which is, if you know anything about golf, that's a low handicap. So it's a single digit. And I'm 67 and keep up with the young boys. But I give the credit to that because I'm on the program that I recommend, particularly on the thyroid hormones. So why doesn't your doctor make the diagnosis? One, he doesn't spend time to go over your symptoms. Secondly, he relies solely on your blood tests. He doesn't care about your symptoms. And if the blood tests are normal, what does he tell you when you continue to complain? Well, we had a lady on a radio program on one of our podcasts recently. She'd been to the doctor 3 times, and he tells her, you're just seeking attention, as if she didn't have anything better to do. Other women have told me that the doctors make them feel like they're hypochondriacs. And what do? They offer you an antidepressant invariably, as if the reason you have your symptoms is because you have low levels of Prozac or Paxil or Lexapro or Effexor or some antidepressant in your body. They put you on anti-anxiety medication. They put you on the benzodiazepine preparations for sleep. You're taking your anti-insomniac medications and all these various drugs and anti-inflammatory medication and medications for your bowels and for your urinary tract. And next thing you know, you're on 5 or 6 different medications. You're getting sicker quicker because they haven't addressed the underlying problem. When you make a diagnosis tells you what the underlying problem is. If you have symptoms and the doctor says, well, your blood tests are normal, you need to say, what's causing these symptoms? Something's not right. Don't let him say it's all in your head. You're basically a hypochondriac. You're just an attention seeker. You're just depressed. That's all you are. You're just a depressed woman, and I'm going to give you antidepressants. And men, it goes the same thing for you. Now, the problem is that women experience, men can experience too, because as their testosterone level, as your testosterone level declines, guess what happens? Your body can't convert T4 to T3, the inactive or the minimally active thyroid hormone to the active thyroid hormone T3, and you don't produce enough energy within your cells. And as you age, your thyroid levels are going to go down, and besides, 18% of the men we see have antibodies to their thyroid gland. So don't let some doctors say, well, you have high blood pressure. If you're overweight, when you have high blood pressure, the first thing you need to do is you need to take magnesium, for crying out loud, lose weight and exercise. Don't go on antihypertensive or blood pressure medication. Next thing you know, you're going to be on pre-diabetic medication and diabetic medication. You're going to be on heart medication, and one thing leads to another, and you're going to be on a whole anti-cholesterol medication. Guess what? One of the causes of elevated cholesterol is low thyroid condition. One of the causes of heart disease, low thyroid. You've got to have energy production within your cells, and that's what thyroid enables you to do. And most doctors are untrained into thinking about hypothyroidism. Now, let me make a recommendation. I have a great book. Where's my book? Right here. I wrote a book, Hypothyroidism, Health and Happiness. You can call our office. Call it at 281-698-8698. Tell them you listen to the podcast, and I want to give you this hypothyroidism book. You read that book, and it'll tell you a lot. And another thing that happens with doctors, if they ever make the diagnosis of hypothyroidism, that's only based upon blood tests, they will start you on a synthetic thyroid medication. We use natural desiccated thyroid, Hotze thyroid, which we make here in our compounded pharmacy. We have used Armor Thyroid and Nature Thyroid if they're available. There's been some problems with getting these drugs. That's why we compound our own preparations here and have for years. So we want to make sure we're able to give the supply. But natural desiccated thyroid hormone, which has the same exact thyroid hormones in the same ratio as your body makes, T3 and T4. And if you give that, it's a godsend. We've had so many people, thousands. We've seen 31,000 guests since over the last, 27 years. Longer than that, would it be 10, 20, almost 28 years. We've seen over 31,000 guests here at the center, and they come in here because they have the symptoms of low thyroid. I've been preaching on this for 30 years, for crying out loud. Get my book and read about it. Read Dr. Broda Barnes' book, Hypothyroidism, the commonly misdiagnosed illness. And doctors aren't trained to think and give therapeutic trials of thyroid. I believe this. If you have the symptoms of hypothyroidism, then you need to be placed on a trial of therapeutic trial of desiccated natural thyroid hormone. And then we'll see how you do, rather than being put on a trial of antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. That's the story on hypothyroidism. I hope this meets you. And remember, I believe you need to do a 180 and take charge of your health. You need a doctor who will coach you on a path of health and wellness. with a staff of professionals so that you don't have to take pharmaceutical drugs and you can enjoy a good quality of life.
And also remember, you can go to Dr. Hotze's website, Hotze, Hotze, HWC.com. That's Hotze, HWC.com. And you can get on our symptom checker, because if any of those symptoms that Dr. Hotze sounded like hypothyroidism to you, then we'd love to be able to help you. You can check those symptoms that you have and see if maybe you do have hypothyroidism. So in addition to getting the book, definitely get on our website and definitely go to hotzepodcast.com. That's Hotze podcast.com to subscribe to our podcast. You have been listening to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution.
Information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application